What's going on, guys? It is New Year's Eve of 2025, and I am a little sick today, just kind of sitting at home and reflecting on everything that I've accomplished this year, things that I want to change for next year. I've got four main goals, and I just wanted to discuss those a little bit. Before I get into those, I do have some just ideas behind goal setting and vision casting as we go into 2026. If you don't aim for something, you're never going to hit anything. Most of us look at these uber successful people and they think they were just lucky. And that may be the case sometimes, but more often than not, they just relentlessly pursued their goals. They were men on mission wanting to make an impact in the world. When you actually write down your goals or talk about them, record them or whatever, and revisit it throughout the year, kind of what you said then or what you wrote down, you can kind of hold yourself accountable in a way. Last year, I made a few goals for myself in 2025, and some of them I achieved, went above and beyond even. Others I kind of failed in. And one of the things I failed in was this YouTube channel, and that's something that I definitely want to pick back up on. But regardless, it is very encouraging to see the progress that was made in my life and the goals that I did put more focus and attention on. I've heard it said if you don't live a life by design, you will live a life by default. And so if we're not aiming at anything, if we're not making plans for what we want life to look like in the future, someone else is usually going to determine it for us, whether that's boss, parents, friends, or whatever. And that's certainly not what I want. It's sort of like how the law of entropy in physics works. When you leave something to itself, it tends to result in disorder and chaos instead of order and structure. An outside force is needed to bring things back into order from chaos. And this is where setting goals and establishing discipline, vision casting, that's where it all comes in. I want to live a life by design, and I'm sure that you guys do too. I'm sure you guys have ideas of what you want your life to look like a year from now, 3 years, 10 years from now, where you have more control over your time, over your energy and resources. Obviously, there's going to be things in life that you can't control, but focus on controlling the controllables. Make your goals around those controllable things that you can actually change and have an impact in. But make it realistic as well. You're probably not going to go from zero to hero in a year, but we also tend to underestimate what we can accomplish in that time, and especially in longer periods of time, like decades. So the first of these goals that I wanted to get into, as I kind of mentioned, is retrying the content creation side of things, building a YouTube channel. I think 1,000 subscribers is a pretty modest goal to start out with, and I think that's very achievable within a year for 2026. To be completely honest, I'm kind of struggling at my 9 to 5 and just the life of corporate America in general. I'm longing for a way to leave my job, boss, and coworkers to just get out of there, get out of toxic cultures. And it's not even like my job is that bad or that hard, but like I just want to be independent in the future. I want to have an independent source of income that relies on how much work that I actually put in and not how many hours I put in at a job. Maybe I'm just stubborn a little bit, but the older I get, the more I hate the matrix of the corporate job. It's so awful just having to follow the script and say certain things at work and to customers and to be obedient, be the nice guy, having to ask permission for time off and just being a good little boy at work as if I'm supposed to spend my whole life in subjection to a company and managers that, for people who don't even care about me. I think one thing that I've definitely learned this year is the fact that though I am very replaceable at work, I am not at all replaceable in life in general. I am my own person. I'm uniquely myself. I have my own stories and skills and experiences that I can leverage to teach others on YouTube, entertain, encourage, make people laugh, etc. They can hire someone else to fulfill my job at work, but they can't, they can't destroy me. And so my own personal brand and just building that's something that I want to establish this year. And you have your own unique personality and stories too. And, you should be encouraged to start your own thing, go independent. And while you're kind of still at work, try to start something on the side where, you're building your channel or some kind of business that generates income outside of work. And that's going to be a very valuable skill in a world where AI is replacing so many jobs. Personal brand, interpersonal skills, just being real with people and talking online as so many people have been doing. Every time I think YouTube is oversaturated with certain kinds of content, I see new creators pop up all the time. They go from 0 to 50,000 subscribers plus, maybe even more, because they have personality. They're valuable in what they say, or they're just funny, they're entertaining in some way. And I'm sure that pretty much anyone could do it. One thing that you should be reminded of, as I have continued to remind myself this year, is the fact that there are people out there who are way dumber than you, making way more money than you on the internet. I was always very smart academically in school, like 4.0 GPA throughout high school and college. One of the problems with the smarter kids like myself is we often were perfectionists. We try to wait until we have perfect knowledge before making a move. We study and study and study, but we never take action. We're not so much risk takers. And that's what academia and school structures, that's what it designed us to be. We're good at taking tests on paper, but we're not so great at solving real world problems. Whereas the C students, they kind of have the advantage here. They just go for it and they fail sometimes, but as a result of failing, they win quicker. Failure is often the quickest path to victory. You'll actually learn from the failure. You'll get some negative feedback and therefore gain wisdom for how to change your methods the next time. You make a few videos that maybe don't hit in the algorithm. Well, that's fine because you've gathered some data and now you know what's going to work and maybe what will work next time. You keep focusing on trial and error. So yeah, that's one of the goals. Let's go for 1,000 subs this year. I don't think that'll be too difficult. And I'll say 2 videos a week. That's 104 for the year. Next goal, number 2, this is a financial goal. I will definitely explain more about this in a future video, but my net worth, I would like to take my net worth to $160,000 by the end of the year. Now, if that seems like an arbitrary number, I made it $160,000 because it's a kind of achievable goal for where I am at now. 2025 was the year when I finally hit 100K net worth for the first time, which felt like a massive achievement. And maybe to some people that sounds like an insane amount of money. Maybe to others, you think, well, I hit $1 million by the time I was 30. That's nothing. But for me, I think it's a good amount of money. I think it's average at least for being 29 years old. Charlie Munger used to say, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you have to do it. In other words, it's probably the hardest financial milestone, like going from 0 to 100K. It's very challenging because you start from nothing. Supposedly going from 100,000 to $1 million, that's much easier because you've already started the compounding process. You've started rolling the snowball in your favor where your capital gains are contributing more than your own contributions at that point. And it's true, compound growth is incredible, but you typically don't really begin to see the fruits of that compounding until that first $100,000. People often use 10% a year as an average growth rate because that's historically what the stock market, the S&P 500 at least, has performed. If you only have $1,000 invested, then a 10% gain is only $100, so not really a big deal. But 10% of $100,000, that's now $10,000, and that's quite significant. That's like a decent chunk of your monthly bills. That's more than the average American saves in a year, in fact, all for just doing nothing and letting your money grow by its own. I was 28 this year when I hit my $100,000 net worth for the first time. Now I'm 29. And if you guys are listening to this and you're in your early 20s, I would encourage you to take advantage of the time and the energy that you have now. It's very possible to do it even faster than me. Hit 100,000 at 25, just working your jobs and saving 30 to 50% of your income. Take advantage of that time. Save as much as you can, especially while you're living at home with your parents. You don't have to spend money on luxury cars and shoes and stuff like that. Even if you don't make it to 100,000 until 30, that's still a good achievable milestone to hit. I was roughly 25 when I started my financial literacy journey, and I wish I had known what I do now about investing and finance and everything. The cool thing is if you have 100,000 invested by the time you're 25, and then you just leave the money compounding at 10% for 40 years without even adding any more contributions, you would have roughly over 4.5 million at age 65. And seriously, that's incredible. I know that's a long time away to think about, like 65, but you're going to be 65 one day before you know it. So why not just start investing, try to get to that first 100,000, very important milestone. Or even if you don't make it till 100,000 when you're 30, hitting it by 30 is still really good. You could have 2.8 million at age 65, which isn't bad at all. So all that to say, I'm starting 2026 with a net worth of about 125,000, maybe 120,000. I know the stock market went down just a little bit, but yeah, I'm going to attempt to get to at least 160,000 by the end of the year. If it's a good year, maybe I hit 170, 175,000, but yeah, I'm just going to set the goal at 160. I think that's very achievable. And how I'm going to do that, I'd like to continue saving on average about $2,000 a month, saving slash investing, not just putting money in an emergency fund and letting it get eaten away by inflation. And yeah, with reasonable stock market growth, I should be able to hit my goal. If there's a big crash this year, then I'm probably not going to hit it because my investments will go down, but that's okay. I'm fine with buying the dip. And the accounts I'll be doing this in, I plan to max out my HSA, health savings account, my Roth IRA. IRA is individual retirement account. You should definitely open a Roth IRA if you're in your early 20s and max that out every year. And I'll also plan to fund my traditional 401k at work and a little bit in brokerage accounts. Third goal for the year 2026 is to travel somewhere new. I live in the United States, obviously, and it's a great country, but I also like to see other parts of the world too. It gives you a refreshed perspective on life. It can have a way of just changing the way that you view everything in general. I haven't left the country since the world shut down in 2020, and I definitely miss international travel. Before 2020, I went to some really cool places like New Zealand, the Philippines. A couple countries I have my eyes on now are actually in South America, namely Brazil and Colombia. I had a friend who traveled to Brazil this last year, and he was just telling me and my friends how awesome it was, the food, the culture, the women, the scenery of the country, and the landscape itself. As a side note, speaking of women, that's kind of another goal that I had last year was to just talk more with women, be more bold and confident as a man in the dating scene. I've met a handful of South American women online from countries like Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador. And I do just want to say this to encourage all the young men out there who I know might be struggling in the dating scene. If you're like me and you've found that the dating market is just absolutely cooked in the US or Canada or the UK, wherever, if you're very discouraged because women are just so entitled and lacking traditional feminine traits and they're not even attractive anymore and they're just not respecting you as a man, I would encourage you, as I've done this year, even if it's just online dating, try talking to women in these other countries. There's nothing wrong with becoming a passport bro. I've known some people in that space who have had great success and are now happily married. If you're an average American man, there's plenty of women in Brazil, Colombia, etc., who will actually make great wives for you. Even if you don't end up marrying or moving a girl overseas, just talk to some of those women and let yourself be reminded of who you are as an American man. They will recognize and respect you for who you are. You're blessed. You live in a very rich country. You don't need to give up on dating entirely. You just need to meet the right kind of woman, and there's plenty out there in other parts of the world. So yeah, that's kind of just a side note, like wanting to date more, be more confident in that realm. But yeah, getting back into travel, probably Brazil this year. If I have just one trip, that's definitely where I want to go, is Brazil. Fourth goal for the year, a simple one, just maintaining health, improving my weight and health conditions a little more. I was continuing to struggle with autoimmune conditions in 2025, but they did improve a lot. And I've been slowly reclaiming my health as I've made intentional decisions about my diet. I've personally found success eating a mostly animal-based diet. That's the diet that includes lots of meat and also a good amount of fruit. My typical breakfast in 2025, it was steak and eggs, or sometimes just ground beef and eggs to save a little bit of money. Steak can be kind of expensive. I still think beef and eggs is the best breakfast you can have, or best meal in general. It's incredibly nutrient dense, very high in protein and quality fats. I do occasionally still eat like sourdough bread, white rice in moderation. I'm not super strict on always staying within the bounds of animal-based diet all the time, but my general philosophy of eating hasn't changed. Starting with whole foods, single ingredients, foods like chicken, beef, strawberries, eggs, cheese, whatever. It's very simple, just eat things with recognizable ingredients, nothing artificial. Nothing that your grandma wouldn't understand what it is, like canola oil or red 40. And recognize that health is wealth, and investments in your health will never be regretted. So yeah, these are just some of my goals in 2026. I'll definitely make some more videos breaking down kind of what I've done to come to these goals, particularly with finance, which is something I'm going to address a lot on my channel, how I made it to 100K and beyond. Let's make 2026 the year where we don't just start a gym membership in January, go 3 times, and then just forget about our goals. Or maybe start reading the Bible, kind of quit at Leviticus when it gets hard. Let's just try to like actually do something with our lives, start businesses, start saving money and making an investing plan, things like that. Little things that compound every day. I will see you guys next year in 2026. Until then, have a good one.